So, guys, this is episode 2 of She Leads Data. Our guest is Katie Willoughby. She's the head of analytics at Open Data Belfast. And in this episode, we're going to cover Katie's journey into the industry, turning short stays into positive outcomes, feel the fear and do it anyway, lean into your skills, and it's never too late to change paths. So many thanks, Katie, for coming to the Data Gals platform and talking about your journey.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. So I'd studied a joint undergraduate degree in biology and maths, and then I'd kind of gone down the biosciences route with a master's in cancer sciences. But there was still a really like heavily statistical component, so the math side never truly left me. But I'd say my first job in the biosciences, I felt that maybe something was missing, and maybe it wasn't really the route for me. And then I don't think I'd ever really considered the tech industry, but a role came up in the company I was working my graduate job in as a data analyst. And I just kind of thought, well, not really enjoying what I'm doing right now. So, I'll apply for that because I had the maths undergraduate degree and just see what happens. And I got it. So that really allowed me to experience analytics within the biosciences industry, which I actually hadn't even realized that combining the two things that I enjoyed would be a viable career option. And also, I think back then too, it was, we weren't running around referring to it as the tech industry. I think that's kind of um, something that just happened.
Yeah, is there any specific kind of experience that you think helped you bridge the gap between your original field, being in biosciences, to kind of becoming a data analyst?
Yeah, of course. So, like I kind of said, during my master's at the University of Glasgow, I was working on triple negative breast cancer and I was using androgen receptors as an additional receptor as a marker for the suitability of precision medicine treatments. So, in part of this, I had thousands of patients of tumor samples to score just using your eyes. And I'd ended up developing a computer based colorimetric detection algorithm to validate my scoring technique, to help standardize subjective scoring, eliminate human error that happens in the medical industry, and speed up patient diagnosis and treatment planning. So there's a lot of crossovers actually between the healthcare sector, the biosciences, and how tools like machine learning and building out algorithms can improve existing systems and innovate new technologies. So I think it's tech obviously is coming into an awful lot of industries at the minute, but healthcare is a huge one. So there were definitely links there even during my studies, whether I realized it or not, that really helped me when I started a career in the tech sector.
Yeah, is there any specific tools that you still use to this day that you have the knowledge from kind of your biosciences background?
Yeah, well, I guess all those sort of basic ones that they would give you in Excel, and then coding a bit in R has obviously been transferable, to SQL. And it's really, I think, just that the statistical thinking, critical thinking, being able to look at things with that analytical mindset, which I think when you're in sort of sciences, life sciences, biosciences, any type of sciences, maybe you don't realize that you already have a lot of those skills that fit really nicely into the tech industry. Until you explore that a bit better.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting and it's good. I think for the community to know that there is opportunities to change your career and there's a lot of transferable skills in other industries. How do you think you navigated through having short stays and was it actually beneficial to your career?
Yeah, of course. So during the beginning of the first COVID lockdown, I was working in a public body as an analyst. And I was really enjoying my role there, and I wasn't planning to leave or have a short stay. Although I'd seen a role online that would combine analytics and working to consult with big pharma clients. And to me, it looked like my dream job. So I'd say that role influenced my career trajectory as it let me again work in another role that brought analytics and biosciences together. But obviously then caused a short stay in the other role that I was in. I think, though, in that, although a move like that is scary, particularly when you're in a public sector role to start with, and everybody says, don't leave your public sector role, it's very safe. They don't make redundancies. You don't, you get lots of holidays. So everybody's a bit kind of skeptical about it. But in the role I moved to, my efforts and my passions were recognized, internally and by external clients. And there I also discovered a love for people management and being able to positively impact other people's careers. So I think, and we talked about as well, not just short stays, but like feeling the fear and doing it anyway. Um,
Mhm.
that was definitely one of those times where um, I don't think a short stay is ever planned. So I think, if you speak to a recruitment consultant or whoever, and they maybe look at your CV and they say, oh, but you've lots of short stays, how are you going to explain that? It's being able to sit down in front of somebody and actually, show them that you're a person, and maybe a lot of these things weren't your choice, particularly over COVID in the
Mhm.
last few years. There have been loads of redundancies across all industries because businesses didn't know how to navigate um, changing times. So that's not necessarily the employee's fault if your company just gets rid of full teams.
Mhm.
Um, or for me, my husband and I were living in the southwest of England and we decided to move back to Belfast. So, again, obviously we had to move jobs and facilitate a move. So you were taking job necessarily, for financial reasons because you needed to pay for that move rather than it being your dream role. So then when the right role came up, of course you moved again to take that. So, I think as long as you can sit down and confidently show how your career path kind of works together seamlessly, and that you aren't a flight risk. In fact, you're a very hard worker. I think really getting that face to face is so much more helpful than just having short stays on your CV.
Yeah, 100%. And I agree with you, Katie. Me being in recruitment, I see, people moving so many times, but obviously understanding that during COVID, there's been some difficult times. As you said, a lot of hiring, a lot of firing. Companies didn't know how to navigate this difficult landscape. And as long as you do explain your situation, we're all people at the end of the day. And, if there's a clear explanation and your skills are still valuable to the market, then there's always going to be a role for you out there. What was your mindset like when you were faced with short stays in your roles?
Anybody else probably have always been worried about short stays and the negative connotations that come with them. Particularly, like I said, when they're only written on paper, it's very easy to talk somebody through your journey and your why in person, but it's much harder if they're only looking at your CV. I wouldn't say that any of my short stays were particularly strategic, and they certainly weren't in any grand career plan, but more situational. Um, I'm in terms of mindset, I'm very self aware and I've always known when a role no longer benefits me or if I'm not enjoying it anymore. And just with age and a bit of experience, I've also come to recognize when the culture or the ethos of a company doesn't work for me or for my lifestyle. And I think particularly whenever I moved into management, if I wasn't able to positively help and impact the people I was managing, or I didn't agree with how the company was treating people, and I couldn't change it even for my team, then that's big red flags for me. And of course, you go home and you stress about those things, and that's not helpful. And there's only so long that you can do that for. I'd say the thing that's helped me extract maximum value from short stay experiences is just my growing confidence. Like you said, leaning into your skills, knowing that you have skills that if they're valuable in your current company, they'll be valuable for another company as well. A lot of people are worried about the grass isn't always greener, and I do agree with that. It's not always greener, but if something's really negatively impacting your mental health or your home life or the people around you, how much really is your salary worth? So being able to define what it is that I want out of my career and recognizing when a company or a role is aligned with me and when it's not. But also communication. Like a really great
Mhm.
employer will listen to your feedback and support employees to get what they need out of a role without the fear that they will leave. So, if you're able to say, like, this really isn't working for my team, or it's not working for me, or it's not working for my company, how an employer responds to that,
Mhm.
speaks volumes. Or if you ask for extra training and they say, oh no, that's too scary. If we train Katie in that, maybe she'll put those skills on her CV and she'll leave. That's more likely to make somebody actually leave
Mhm.
than doing what they've asked for.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And I think when I'm speaking to people in the industry, confidence comes up a lot, that they sometimes can't voice their opinion, or they're a little bit timid, nervous. How did you build up your confidence? You've done really well in the industry, being ahead of and managing a team. Where did you find that within you?
I think, yeah, I think a lot of that's false confidence, to be honest. A lot of it is just, we're using the phrase "feel the fear and do it anyway." Like, yeah, I actually think I grew a lot in confidence over COVID. Sounds silly, and I know a lot of like, for instance, my parents don't get it in terms of us sitting here virtually talking to each other, but like that was our lives for 2 or 3 years. That was our jobs. Um, and I found it much easier actually to sit behind a screen and do like data analytics consulting and that type of thing with huge clients, because I could sit here and have a script and be planned, and rather than being in the room. And also, it was a bit of, I think, in my early career when I was in a room, and still now, I sometimes feel like it. You feel like a little girl, and who's going to take me seriously? And I'm 5 foot tall, and I don't look the oldest, and whatever else, and those sorts of kind of imposter syndrome feelings come in. So for me, it was more kind of that mindset about, if it's not going to be my job, it's going to be somebody else's job. And what's the worst that's going to happen if I don't apply for this, or I don't put myself out there, or I don't ask? And I'm not saying my career's always been smooth sailing, because it hasn't been. And like, I've definitely applied for jobs and not got them internally or externally, but it's like learning from those failures. Realizing that I can't be good at everything. I think that the last couple of years for me has been a huge learning curve. Like you said, coming into a head of data analytics role, and thinking like, oh my goodness, there are people here or people I'm managing that are so much better at X, Y, or Z than I am. Are they going to respect me as a manager because they know they can do a better job at this? But I think it's like your confidence comes from being really secure in what you can do, and it's okay to recognize that there's better people out there than you at certain things, but your combination of skills, of technical skills, soft skills, professional skills, whatever, that's what makes you really valuable in your role.
People overlook and can focus on somebody else's experience and how successful they are, but actually taking a step back and saying, well, wow, this is what I have accomplished, and this is the skills that I bring to the table, rather than, comparing yourself all the time to other members of the team or other people in the industry. And I love what you're saying, feel the fear and do it anyway, fake it until you make it. And that's
Yeah,
how, if you don't put yourself out there, if you don't join the conversation, people won't never kind of know about your skill set and actually what you can do. So, as Katie said, always ask the question, what's the worst that's going to happen?
for sure.
Um, is there a specific moment, Katie, where you remember an experience or fear that initially held you back, but you've managed to overcome it?
Yeah, so I think in general the world of work is terrifying. You can you come out of university, and maybe like me, you worked in restaurants and bars, but you've not worked in a sat at a desk for 8 hours or in a professional setting. So I'd say fear initially held me back when I was applying for my very first data analytics role. I didn't, in my opinion, have any data analytics experience, because even the term data analyst was never something I'd heard during my the maths part of my degree. It was all about computer science or being a IT teacher, or like data analytics wasn't a thing. Data science, data engineering, it was never mentioned. So when I applied for that very first role in analytics, I felt wildly underqualified and completely out of my depth. But I was really lucky that on my initial biosciences graduate scheme, I had a great support network in the form of both my line manager and my mentor, who both pushed me to be brave. They never said, "Oh, don't leave this role." I guess the whole point of a graduate scheme is that they want to see you get what you need out of it and then go on, and they'll hire more graduates. But they both pushed me to be brave, and they posed that what's the worst that could happen question. And then I went on to have what I thought was the most awful interview ever, where the person who was playing bad cop really, really went in on their role. So I was really shocked, when I was offered the role. But that then kick-started my ability to just give things a go. And I guess that's not only about the workplace, but about life. It's just about growing up and taking chances. And I think in all aspects of life, I'm a lot more afraid of standing still and not being busy and letting opportunities pass me by than I am of taking risks. And that's something probably that terrifies my husband and my parents and everybody else, because they're going, "Oh my goodness, what's Katie going to do now?" But it's yeah, it's definitely something that I just think about the opportunities again, is if you aren't putting yourself out there for opportunities, then they're going to be somebody else's opportunities, and you're going to go, "Why didn't I apply for that?" The worst that was going to happen is that I didn't get it, but I didn't even put my hat in the ring to get a chance.
Putting yourself out there, the worst that's going to happen is no. But if you don't even put yourself out there, it's always going to be no. It's never going to be a yes. So
Exactly.
even giving yourself that opportunity is half the battle. You mentioned that you kind of had people around you who were saying, "Katie, what's the worst that's going to happen? Do it." What was, having those mentors, having those role models or maybe champions who were supporting you in your journey, how significant were they to kind of your career progression and where you are at the moment?
Yeah, for sure. So, I'd say, like I said, I had a really great mentor in my graduate scheme. So he wasn't particularly old, so he felt quite relatable. But he was doing very well in his career. He was the first person actually that had ever told me that if I was offered my dream role for half of my current salary, to take it. And he even talked about the opportunities to do unpaid work for my dream company. If I was ever asked to do that, do it. He was really an advocate for maximizing opportunities before I had any real financial responsibilities, like a car or a mortgage or a family to support. He also really wasn't concerned about me leaving my current role, which was quite refreshing. So I guess between my graduate scheme and my current job, there was a good lot of years where I didn't have an external mentor. Maybe there were people, well, there were definitely people throughout my career, I really looked up to, and maybe weren't an official mentor roles, but definitely served to help my career. But no, more recently, I have the privilege of being mentored by a woman who is leading the way, in my opinion, in the tech industry in Northern Ireland. And she's really, in my eyes, doing it all. She has an amazing career. She's a wonderful mother. She's not accepting of compromises in either role. Like, she really is out there doing great things. Um, and she encourages me, and basically there's a phrase in Northern Ireland, "wise up." We'd all just tell each other to wise up, when you're, and she'll sit and she'll listen to me on calls, and she'll get to the end of me speaking and she'll just go, "Kitty, wise up." Of course that's not the way things are, and she puts everything into perspective for me when I need to hear it. And she really helps me with self doubt. And she's currently my biggest cheerleader. So her support and advice has been invaluable, particularly as I navigate now my career concerns with welcoming my first child. So seeing her actually out there living it and doing it, and like I said, not accepting compromises um, in either side of her life, to me that's helpful, and it's hugely inspirational. And particularly, when there are lots of stats out there flying around that most women actually leave the tech industry before the age of 35. Um, some of those things are terrifying. So to have a mentor like her who can show you the actual lived path and experience, I find that really helpful.
I'm hearing a lot that, there's a great quote saying, if you can be it, no, that's not the quote.
If
Um,
you can see it, you can be it.
if you can see it, you can be it. Yes, exactly that. And, it's super important for women to collaborate with each other. And, that mentorship, role model, and guidance can be vital for somebody, like a woman in the space, because unfortunately females are the minority group in the industry. So it's important to kind of build that community aspect and support each other through, confidence building and advice, or even insights in the industry from somebody who's senior than you, and who's kind of, as you said, can do it all, have a great career, as a family, can really balance everything in their life. As we speak about leaning into your skills, there's in data, there's loads of technical expertise that people have, but you emphasize the importance of soft skills. How important are they to somebody who's just starting out their career, or even somebody who's in your position, being at leadership level?
Yeah, I think the first thing to say on this, and I had a really insightful discussion with some ladies a few weeks ago, is to say that we really need a reframing of the term soft skills, because that term gives the implication that they're unimportant and that they're much less valuable than technical skills, when the reality is that they are professional skills, some of which are incredibly difficult to have, and you wouldn't get hired into certain roles or certain senior roles without them, because we all know highly brilliant technical people who you definitely could not set in front of a call with an external client. Um, so then that's, although they're brilliant at their technical skills that they're bringing, that will also hinder their career, because if they want to get into senior management or leadership, then that potentially is skills that they haven't been trained in and that they don't have. um, so I think a specific example in the data analytics space would be the power of influencing. Like, I would often refer to influencing upwards, where you need to meet with stakeholders who are very senior to you and maybe they don't know who you are or what you do. So across various roles, there are people right at the top who claim to be part of data driven businesses, but will often come to data analytics meetings with preconceived or biased ideas about decisions to be made. Like, they already know what they're going to do, they just want you to give them some data that aligns with the decision that they have already made. So, if the data says something different to what the stakeholder's decision is, it's not the analytics or the technical analytics that's going to change their mind, it's the person. So the analyst needs to have enough emotional intelligence to sensitively navigate a situation like that. They need to be able to make the stakeholder feel empowered by the data and influence them enough to make the stakeholder feel like they've made the decision to change their minds themselves based on the data presented. So in this scenario, being the data analyst, it's a bit manipulative. You're manipulating the situation to get the right evidence-based outcome, but
Mhm.
it's a tricky game that can't be done without the right level of confidence and effective communication and influencing skills, which we're all calling soft skills. But like I said, at the end of the day, it's not the technical analytics that's going to change a decision like that. It's the person.
Yeah, and I can't emphasize this enough myself. When I'm recruiting for any data role, communication is the first thing that I look at, and the way that a candidate would be able to translate, the work that they've been doing to somebody who's non-technical. That is half the battle. It's important for me to also understand that they know exactly what they're doing, why they're doing it, and the effect it's having on the business. So I think, as you said, soft skills, they are as important as technical skills and shouldn't be overlooked by any data person in my eyes.
Exactly.
As we move into the final stage, it's never too late to change paths. Katie, can you pinpoint moments where you realised the potential for change and growth? and how did those realizations shape your career decisions?
Yeah, so I think that asking 18-year-olds to know what career path they're going to take for the rest of their lives is completely unrealistic. I certainly had no idea what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to go to university because all of my friends were doing that, and that's just what people do. And during school, I was pushed towards maths and sciences, but that really didn't feel like a conscious decision that I was making. It was just something everybody around me was saying to do. So I think personally, my whole career journey has been driven by wanting to make my mum proud because I find her own career journey so inspiring whenever I was growing up. So, just in terms of pinpointing moments for growth and change, my first major one was deciding to leave a job that I loved, like I mentioned previously, in England to move back to Belfast with my now husband. So, this was really scary for both of us. Like, our whole lives changed, new jobs, new city, new flat, new jobs that, again, like I mentioned, were for financial necessity to facilitate the move rather than being our dream roles. But no, like unexpectedly, those transitionary roles did end up growing us both in our careers. But I'd say it was the physical move that grew us more as professionals. As I mentioned, it was scary and it was a risk, but we were both really determined to prove to ourselves and to everybody around us that the risk would be worth it. Because there are always going to be people who are skeptical of your decisions and what you decide to do in life, career or otherwise. Um, I'd say another pinpoint moment for me that provided the potential for growth was the realization that maybe I had some skills I could share with other people. And I decided to lean into developing my management and leadership skills, which up until that point, I'd been very focused on technical analytics skills and developing my career that way. But once I started leaning into the leadership and management skills, studying to learn more and expressing, within my employment roles that I wanted opportunities to mentor, I wanted opportunities to manage and lead, then my growth in those areas began. And I was able to find joy in a new aspect of my career that led me opportunities that weren't previously accessible to me because I wasn't taking those opportunities and I wasn't studying for them. Um, so the big realization for me has been that nothing changes if you stay where you are comfortable. And that works for a lot of people. A lot of people are more than happy in their jobs. But then you have other people who are going, why can't I do that? And why can't I have that opportunity? But they're not taking the actions towards making those opportunities a reality. So I think that has kind of shaped my subsequent career decisions, and it's pushed me to be brave and recognize if I'm coasting or I'm not pushing myself or I'm letting opportunities pass me by. So those moments have made me more self-aware and able to keep myself accountable.
This advice is great, and as you said, we keep preaching about feel fear and do it anyway, because what's the worst that's going to happen? I know you and your husband have taken the leap of faith to move to Northern Ireland where you're living just now, and to move with your careers, and you're always advancing yourself. Do you have any advice for somebody who's contemplating a career shift? Maybe they're at this stage in their life, as you said, when they are coasting and they maybe don't know which path to then go to. Do you have advice for somebody like that?
Yeah, I would say the term career changer is going to be something that applies to most of us. The career landscape doesn't look the same as it did 20 or 30 years ago, where somebody would just sit in the same job forever, or at least sit in the same company forever and move up within that company. We all know now it doesn't always work like that. And I've certainly sat in public sector jobs where I know that the next step up for me is 5 years away. And then you kind of look at the skills and the attributes and even the salary, and you go, but if I'm going to improve myself every year for 5 years, I'm going to want more than that in 5 years, which is why we end up with career changers and job hoppers and short stays because some employers aren't providing realistic or fast enough growth. But I think with advancements in technology and the pace of the creation of jobs and titles that we've never heard of before, so the big one for me would be Scrum Master. Like I'd certainly never heard of that whenever I was at university, and there certainly weren't jobs in it. Um, we may as well see all of these creation of new roles as opportunities to learn. So when new jobs are created, we're all on a level playing field. So no one's going to have 10 or 15 years experience, like when, for instance, there's data analytics engineers now, which is just pushing two different job titles together. Um, so so adverts can't say, you need 15 years experience in this when nobody had ever heard of it last year. um so like I've said 100 times before, if it's not going to be your job, then it's going to be somebody else's, so why not you? My advice would be lean into the skills that you have. There are so many transferable skills across loads of industries that are applicable and valuable in the tech industry, that maybe you don't even realize you're doing. Big ones for me, leading an analytics team would be analytical thinking, problem solving, and emotional intelligence. So there are a lot of people will sit in front of you in an interview, and you will ask them, they'll show you this great analytics project, and you will say, okay, cool. So, how do you think that would be really valuable if you were to implement that in a real world scenario? And maybe it's to do with speed cameras that could help prevent road traffic accidents. But the person might sit in front of you and go completely blank because they've never been asked that question before about how what they've done in a bit of software could actually impact the real world. So if they can't link the two of those things together, whereas somebody else who's never been in the tech industry before, looking from the outside in, could listen to that and could tell you, um, how that project would solve a problem. But yeah, I'd say artificial intelligence and machine learning are great, but they really need to be guided by that emotional intelligence and decision making of humans as well. I don't think we're at the stage, or maybe we won't ever be at the stage, where proper, thought out, suitable for the business decisions can be made by AI and machine learning. I think they're for a long time going to need to be guided by that intelligence of a human. Um, and then I think lastly, redundancies are happening all the time. So whether or not you see yourself as a career changer, you might end up being an unintentional career changer just because the industry you're in or the job you're in just doesn't exist anymore. So I think lifelong learners really are going to be the winners here. Like, it's not enough anymore just to do your degree, get a job, and be there the rest of your life. Things that were taught when we were at university probably are outdated now. And you'll know yourself, like when you get an online qualification in a certain software, it's only valid maybe for a year. So you have to keep doing it every year because that's how fast things are changing. Um, so employers need people who can adapt and retrain as their business grows with the world. And it's those people who I don't think being a career changer is a bad thing. If you can show you were successful in one industry, and then you had transferable skills that you took to another industry, and you were able to learn and upskill yourself, I think that actually says quite a lot about you and your adaptability.
Adaptability is a big one, isn't it? And there's so many job titles and professions that are emerging what feels like every day being in the tech industry. So it feels that, even if your skill set matches half of the role, just because the other half hasn't been explored yet because it's new to the industry, no one has the skill set. But it's important to, put yourself out there, go for those interviews, and then you'll be able to grow with the company or with the project that you're working on and actually get those skills that, a job description might require.
Exactly, yeah.
But yeah, Katie, thank you so much for coming on She Leads Data. I hope everybody has enjoyed our little podcast and kind of took away some great advice that Katie has provided. And yeah, I hope to see you again soon, guys. Bye.
Thank you so much for having me.